Dudes and dudettes, Major League Butt Kicking is back in town. I'm Anthony.
I'm Damon.
I'm David.
I'm Kirby.
I'm Katie.
And I'm Jim.
Welcome to issue number 130 of the Crimson Cowl Comic Club podcast. Each and every week, we meet here in our separate Brady Bunch windows and talk about comics. This week, we're going to go around the windows here and talk about what we've been reading. And we're going to jump over to the letters page, in which this week's question for everybody to discuss is, who is the most romantic comic book character? So for all you guys here at the club and those listening and watching at home through the various channels and podcasts and all that stuff, start thinking up your answer for that as well. So we are going to kick it off here with our weekly reviews. Something I picked up at the Cowl off the shelves a while back, finally had time to read, is the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles by Eastman and Laird, the creators, in what is called the first graphic novel. This collection here actually brings together the first three issues of the original Ninja Turtles comics from 1984. They are presented in the color format because the original series was in black and white. Now, while I came to be a Turtle fan through the cartoon and the toy line, there was a couple comics I'd pick up throughout the years, but I have never actually read, especially the beginning. So I had this here, and what I was very excited to see is how much the first issue how much the movie really followed the first issue. Is actually a pretty good outline. With the origin story, there's a couple things tweaked that you would imagine in any kind of movie or TV adaptation. But there's a lot of stuff that had happened where almost the entire first movie from, 1990 was the first issue. And so it was kind of cool kind of seeing how a lot of that was not changed for it. There's a couple elements that are different here and there, as you would expect, but it was pretty entertaining to revisit something 30 years later and but for the first time and feel like, man, I've missed out. I should have read these a long time ago. So yeah, the first issue is dealing with the origin of the Turtles. They're dealing with fighting the Foot Clan and finding out who Shredder is. All that stuff is in there. You don't get any Casey Jones or anything like that. I think he's or April. I think they're probably the two elements from the film that weren't in that original first issue. But issue 2 is when we would meet April for the first time. And what's cool is that April, I think, throughout different iterations and generations and media, she kind of gets kind of a tweaked origin based on, who she is, what her job is. And right from the beginning, she is an assistant to Baxter Stockman, which I didn't know at all. So that was kind of cool. She wasn't a reporter in these original comics, at least from the start. And what was really cool in the latest movies that Nickelodeon put out for the CGI live action Turtle movies, in the second one, they had cast Tyler Perry as Baxter Stockman. And I'm thinking like, all right, cool. You're upgrading something. I'm thinking, this old white guy from the cartoons, this old nerdy white guy. So I'm like, all right, they're giving it to Tyler Perry and, he's going to play the role. Sure, why not? And what was kind of cool to see is that when you see Baxter Stockman in the second issue, he is an African-American character. So that kind of blew my mind too, is that I didn't, they would have whitewashed him in the cartoons. I'm not sure what other iterations had Baxter Stockman like that, but it was a detail like that just reading this kept kind of blowing my mind, just seeing where it all stemmed from in the origin. But issue 2 is dealing with the Mousers that are taking over the city and robbing and doing crime, and actually issue 2 and 3 are the same story. So within those first 3 issues, and then they include a little backup story that's actually a new comic book day advertisement in a way. So they just have some fun things on there about the Turtles and stuff like that in a short story. So yeah, this first graphic novel is pretty awesome. It inspired me to make up for lost time, so I went ahead and purchased the Ultimate Edition in hardcover, which is going to be the black and white edition, and I'm going to start reading Turtles from the beginning, and that'll be my trip through 2020. So, been a Turtles fan forever, but I'm making up for lost time by properly going through the original comics. That's turtle power, I think. All right, Damon, do you have something Ninja Turtles related to talk about?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I had started reading the IDW ongoing series, which is currently ongoing. And I wanted to start from the beginning. It was a good jumping on point because it's a new origin and kind of like a reboot of the franchise. And the hardcovers collect, the issues from the different series, the one-shots and the mini-series, all put in sequential order so you don't have to guess where to go. So this time I'm reviewing volume 2, which has Shredder, Splinter on the cover. They still have the same like katana type of spine, the ribbon bookmark. This book collects issues 13 through 20 of the ongoing series, and then the Casey Jones, April O'Neil, Fugitoid, Krang, and Baxter Stockman one-shots, and then the Secret History of the Foot Clan miniseries. This was fun. I'm definitely hooked. I hate Kirby right now. My wallet hates him even more. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a good adventure. I've never heard of Krang really before until I read this. And then after I started reading this, I had to go watch the 2 CGI movies just to see how bad they were and see what Krang looked like in the movie. But it's a fun story. Just like in the original series, April O'Neil isn't a reporter. She was in here also an assistant for an intern at Stockman's company. This sees the first appearance of Slash, which is another giant turtle that came out of the same lab, only bigger and stronger and dumber than the regular Ninja Turtles. You also get Krang's origin story in here through his one-shot. You see about his planet, his people. And,
Dimension X?
What's that?
Dimension X?
Yep. You get
This time I thought it was just a mutated wad of chewed up bubble gum.
You have the Fugitoid one-shot, which that was a character I'd never heard of before. Here's what he looks like. He was a different, he's an alien, and in the heat of combat, he had to transfer basically his essence into the robot, and then his regular body was destroyed, so he's stuck in the robot. But he does have the ability to shapeshift, so that's kind of cool. There's the big war between, I forget the names, like Lutroniums is the planet or something, between them and Krang and his army. And the Turtles actually end up getting portaled into this planet in the middle of this war. That was kind of a fun story. There's also the history of the Foot stuff, the Secret History of the Foot Clan miniseries. That was a lot of fun. It kind of goes back and forth between present and ancient, and you see like what the origin of Shredder was, and how the Foot became who they were, and how Shredder is still alive today. And that was a lot of fun. The action is fun. The art is the same as the first volume. Like, here's a nice full image of Slash fighting the other turtles in the sewer. It's a fun read. It's different than the stuff I normally read, and I really like it. I've hooked in, and I want to finish reading the series. I just hope that they release them quicker, because I know the series is up in the 100s now, and I think the latest issue the latest hardcover is in the 80s. So they got some catching up to do. But if you're a fan of the Turtles and don't want to start way back when,
like I am?
Yeah, which is actually my next thing. I want to actually read some of the originals, but I'm not, other than like the Berserk manga I'm reading, the black and white. I've seen comparisons between the black and white and the colorized, and I'd want the color versions. And of course, the first hardcover colored is out of print.
Yeah.
So if they ever reprint it, I'll jump on that. But in the meantime, I'll stay with this. But it's a nice jumping on point, new origin story. Kevin Eastman actually writes and draws in here, so he's still connected, even though it's a newer series. And I recommend jumping on board if you want to read some Turtles. Get your Turtle Power action on.
Speaking of Ninja Turtles, Kirby, do you have something turtle related to bring?
Yeah, something for the kids and the ongoing Turtles fans. You got Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, Mutant Universe Sourcebooks, A through Z. It has individual characters. This is also from the Archie Adventure series. So this is the one way that we can gradually suck Damon into the Archie world.
No.
It has nice descriptions of each character, like Ace Duck. It's like I never heard of. Probably half of these characters I never heard of, or just didn't really pay attention to enough because they didn't have a big enough role in the series and stuff. But yeah, great descriptions. Find out little things. And here, in this, April O'Neil is just known as a reporter. She doesn't talk about her other things. But yeah, if you want to know about all the different characters, it has most of them that you'll find throughout the more cartoony style versions of the Ninja Turtles and stuff. You may not have some of the newer, fancier characters, but you got your normal ones, Bebop, Rocksteady, and that in there, Crane. So yeah.
I have a special attachment to Ace Duck because I can remember exactly when I got that action figure. I was at the Buffy's restaurant, which was a coincidence because, 15 years later, Buffy would become a television show. But here in town, there was a diner called Buffy's, and I'd go there. I'd get my grilled cheese, my chocolate milk. It'd be, with my mom and her friend, and then her friend's son, who was my friend, and we were Turtles and Ghostbusters fans and stuff like that. And I remember getting Ace Duck as a gift there. I don't remember if it was for like a birthday thing, but Ace Duck and Buffy's Diner, chocolate milk, and grilled cheese is a combined memory.
I don't think I ever seen anything on the Intergalactic Wrestling series that part of the run, but there's a lot of cool characters for the wrestling group. Definitely got to find out where that is located and where I can read more on it.
Then we will move over to Jim.
All right. The last few weeks, I've been going through the DC Bloodlines books, which was a series of comics based in annuals that dealt with an invasion of parasites to Earth who were sucking people dry. And in the course of that, they created a bunch of new heroes, which were known as the New Bloods. Today I have Bloodbath 1 and 2, which is the culmination of that Bloodlines series. Here we see everything come together. The parasites have literally gotten together. They've sucked enough people dry that they've fed enough. They get together and they form a new organism, which is known as the Taker. And the Taker is going to rise and consume the worst of the world and propagate their species. To combat this, all the heroes get together. They form this big plan. They put Amanda Waller in charge of tactics, and they make their threefold attack. And basically all of them get captured or taken out, which leaves just the New Bloods, these brand new superheroes that came up. Each one was developed in one of the issues of Bloodlines, which were all annuals of the different other superheroes. These New Bloods get together, and they are able to take down this new Taker's parasite with the help of Superman. Superman has been saved from that too. and they are able to at least not take him out, but knock him unconscious, and release the other superheroes who have been had been captured in the course of the event. There were a lot of good points on this. We saw some really cool superheroes were developed as these new bloods that I wish were still around. There's one that was like the center of the attack on the Taker was Anima, whose power was to focus her rage into a being of energy called Animus. Like she would just focus herself and energy beast would come out. That's pretty cool. She was able to take the powers from the other new bloods, use them to amplify her Animus, and that's what actually did combat with the Taker in like a giant kaiju style. They were like King Kong versus Godzilla kind of fight going on, and that's what actually ended up freeing the rest of the superheroes. This was overall, I think this was the best part of that line. There was a lot of things that in the Bloodlines stories that I didn't understand, because basically it was at a point when I was not reading comics and a lot of stuff was going on that made it strange for me. Like, for a lot of the run, Superman was actually dead and they had all these other people being Superman. And Batman's not around and John Paul Valley is in the Super Batman costume. So like there's a lot of weird stuff going on. But here we saw Superman himself with the long hair here. He's got the mullet kind of hair, but we do see Superman. And like I said, there were some of these new superheroes that came out were really cool. And to see these, like, some of them were like really were punk kids, coming together to form a new team and to save the world by saving the other superheroes was really cool. So yeah, if you ever get a chance, go look at the Bloodline stories and then finish off with Bloodbath 1 and 2.
I always like to finish off with a nice bloodbath. So. Okay, I'm going to move over to Archie Comics Super Special, issue number 5. This is a magazine-sized format. This is styled like an Archie Digest, but bigger. Over 100 pages of Archie fun. What's cool about this one, it has a lot of different variety. You have an opening story in which Archie announces that his band, the Archies, are going to go on tour, and they are going to co-headline an event or tour with Josie and the Pussycats. But when Josie's manager hears about that, he thinks that Josie and the Pussycats are a better band, a more popular band. So he kind of fakes this contract to have the Archies sign off as to be the opening act without them knowing. So there's kind of a little rift in that story there, but that eventually leads to Archie and Valerie of Josie and the Pussycats to work together and start writing songs, and they want to work kind of combine the bands for some of the act, and that leads to a little romance between Archie and Valerie, and that actually spans out through a couple of the stories here. Another one of the stories is a real drastic change in style as we jump over to a Sabrina story, Archie and Sabrina, I should say. But it's presented in more of a anime type of style. So it kind of crosses the lines between a classic Archie style and an anime style. And this story here, Archie in The Great Switcheroo, is dealing with Sabrina overhearing about how the guys of Riverdale are saying how, kind of complaining, they think that they have it harder than the women, and the women are talking about how hard they have to present themselves and talking about just, their morning routines, and guys can just wake up and they're ready, and they're saying how Archie doesn't even shower, and he kind of sniffs his armpit a little bit there. So hearing that, Sabrina puts on a little magic spell, and all of those characters wake up in the reverse sex bodies. So all the guy characters are waking up as girls and vice versa. And they just kind of go throughout the day. They don't really have, it's not like, Archie is Betty now or something like that. He is just like Archina, I think they call. So it's just the female Archie. So it's kind of funny the way this kind of goes out. And Salem plays a good part in this issue as well, as kind of egging on with what's going on here. Sabrina doesn't want to abuse the power too much there, and it kind of gets out of control, as one can imagine. But that's a fun little Sabrina story. And then there's another Sabrina story called The Magic Within, which is dealing with Sabrina's maybe crush or boyfriend from her magic school, and that whole side of her life, being a witch and everything, coming to the real world and mixing in with Harvey and everything she has going on there. So it's a story just balancing, dealing with both of those, boyfriends, I guess, that she is dealing at once. That story is going on there. But then the one that I really, really liked is the last story in this super special here is Jughead in the Jughead list. And it's an idea that Archie and the gang are all going to the ski resort, and Hiram Lodge has this list. It's kind of a bucket list, but he's calling it just this checklist of things that he wants to do before he dies. And that inspires Archie and Jughead to write their own lists and being like, well, hey, since we're such young whippersnappers, we can breeze through our list in record time by doing it now. So rather than waiting until they're older, as teenagers, they're going to start working on their checklist of things they want to accomplish before life. But Reggie pulls a little bet and a prank on them and says they should swap their list and complete the other person's list. So Jughead has to do Archie's list, and Archie has to do Jughead's list, and they have to see who ends up winning. And they're doing things where Jughead's doing more adventurous things that he has to accomplish, and we find out that Archie has to see how many pancakes he can eat and things like that. So looking at Jughead's list, it seems like it's a little more fun, maybe a little easier, though. It's just a lot of competitive eating, basically. But the story revolves around one character who is apparently going to be at this ski lodge, which is a singing superstar who is known as Mona Daytona, which may or may not be a riff on Hannah Montana. I don't know. Legal department probably doesn't agree. But yeah, this is a fun story where on the list, Archie said he wants to kiss Mona Daytona, so now Jughead has to. So that's kind of his big overall task throughout this, and it's just fun, some fun classic Archie goodness. It was cool getting the mix of art styles with the classic and the anime, getting some Sabrina heavy stories, getting some Jughead heavy stories, as well as Archie. This is the also known as the Love Spectacular, but this is the Archie Comic Super Special issue number 5. So for $10 in a magazine format, and whatever year this came out, it came out in the 2000s because they're referencing, like Lady Gaga and stuff in here, and Hannah Montana and all that stuff. So, but it feels like a timeless read. Like this could just exist in any decade. So yep, that was some great Archie fun there. Next up on the list, we're going to jump over to David.
This order just is throwing me off here. Okay. So moving stuff around, I couldn't find the physical copies of the books now. I don't know where I put them that I read. But talking about Superman and Batman Generations and Superman and Batman Generations 2. Two different stories. Quick little background history lesson here. So in 1996, John Byrne wrote an an Elseworlds story that was co-published by Marvel Comics, and it was a team a team up that I think it was actually called Batman and Captain America. So it had Batman of like the Golden Age Batman teaming up with Captain America. So as well, Batman and Robin and Captain America and Bucky. And so in like an epilogue to the story, they come back many years after, and Dick Grayson has taken over as Batman, and Bruce Wayne Jr. is Robin. And the two of them find Captain America frozen in ice. This was the basis for John Byrne to do this other story. He decided to take that idea and run with it, and he did Superman and Batman Generations, which ran every issue or whatever. It was like it would jump 10 years, and then the follow-up to that, Superman and Batman Generations 2, would jump. It was meant to take place in between the issues of the first series, but jumped 11 years. So what I did in this time around rereading it is I put the two together and I read them in the chronological order of how they happened rather than how they were published. And it works, it works doing it that way. So it starts off in I think the earliest year that they go back to is like 1929, and I believe that's where they actually do a pre-Batman Bruce Wayne meeting up with a pre-Superman Clark Kent in that story. But it jumps, so you see them from 1939, 1949, 1959, and so on, and then jumps way into the future as well. So it's interesting. This is the books that got me excited about Spider-Man life story. When I found that was going to happen, because that took Spider-Man through the decades, kind of real time from his beginning to current. So it was a similar concept, jumping through, aging the characters in real time, seeing what they're like, and having this ongoing story that ran within it, where, there's things that are planted early on and they don't get resolved until, decades later. So it's a fun read. It's really interesting to see this take on a lot of different characters. It's not just Superman and Batman, but you see a lot of like Justice League and other DC characters throughout the years, and it doesn't all kind of happen as you'd expect it. Like one big difference being Hal Jordan doesn't become a Green Lantern. They kind of skip over him and they go into like Kyle Rayner. Hal Jordan becomes president of the United States at some point in there. But it's a really interesting look at, what could have happened with these characters if you started them out in the 30s, and decade by decade, as they get older, you see Batman getting older and having to deal with that, and facing retirement and things like that. You're seeing Dick Grayson getting older and taking over the mantle of Batman, while Batman's son, Bruce Wayne Jr., becomes Robin and later becomes Batman, and Superman aging slowly, and you see him like disguising himself as Clark Kent to look like he's growing older alongside Lois Lane, as she grows old, and he has, they have kids, and you see what happens to their kids as they grow up and become, these characters that change, and I don't want to say too much about the characters because it doesn't all happen as you would expect it to happen. And while we often give spoilers, I would love for other people to go out and read these, and I'd like to see what other people think of them. So I don't want to give the spoilers and tell you what happens with them. But it's a really fun, entertaining read for people who are fans of these DC characters, to see, kind of imagine what it would be like aging them in real time and going through all this stuff in real time, and seeing how that affects what other things they did, because they do take aspects of other DC storylines, like introducing Kyle Rayner as a Green Lantern at some point, and having Wally West become the Flash, and stuff like that. But you see them in a different way than what you get to see them in the main continuity.
To understand the Superman, how he's presented in the Generations, is it kind of like Paul Rudd in our world, where he does, he's aging very, very slowly?
Yes. Yeah, I was trying to figure that out. If they're presenting Superman like Paul Rudd, that would be an interesting take on Superman. I would love to see Paul Rudd's Superman and see how that goes. Kirby says no.
The world says yes, though. So,
but come on, imagine it: Paul Rudd, Silver Age Superman, doing a lot of really corny stuff and whatever. Yeah, I can see it.
all right. All right. Then we will move on over to Kirby for Green Lantern versus Aliens.
Speaking of Green Lantern, we have Green Lanterns versus Aliens trade paperback. Green Lantern Hal Jordan has unknowingly left a horrific legacy to the future. Jordan made a vow to respect all life, and that includes aliens. When he spared these primal creatures, he may have doomed the lives of countless others. Now it's up to current Green Lantern Kyle Rayner and the remnants of the defunct Green Lantern's corps to rectify the situation. But Kyle is struggling with the mantle of Green Lantern that he's inherited. Further, he's struggling with the definition of heroism in a day and age when Hal's nobility is all too rare. What Kyle is about to experience in the darkest regions of space will change him forever if it doesn't kill him first. This is a fun novel. It's a definite reread that I will go over many times. You have a lantern that goes to the planet that Hal Jordan sent all the alien species that they found in a previous thing, which I don't know if I talked about here or just read somewhere else. But it was a Green Lantern planet, so they just put the shield around the planet, left the aliens there, hoping they live forever and never have any problems. But of course, the ship breaks down and ends up crashing on that planet, and the aliens go wild. Then a group of the different Green Lanterns, I don't know if you know these characters personally, I don't read enough Green Lantern, but Ash, Brick, Dahe, Tomar, and Salik were the five that show up to talk to Kyle Rayner, but he's the only one left that's a Green Lantern. Everybody else lost their powers and stuff after Hal Jordan did all his thing where he just turned psycho and everything flipped upside down and ended the whole Green Lantern Corps and all that. But it's great art, the standard great artwork that comes in all the magazines. It's just a good ongoing story. Standard aliens attacking, just taking everybody over, using them to breed and all that. I don't want to ruin what happens throughout it, but if you like Predators or Aliens and you like Green Lantern, it's definitely worth a read. And
does it
read it more than once? So.
is it presented in a style like if somebody didn't know one or the other or both of them at all? How does it read on that?
It gives you that nice storyline explaining about what Hal Jordan did and why the aliens are on that planet, and kind of gives you a little backstory line of why the Green Lanterns all lost their powers and all that stuff. And then Kyle Renner, how he takes over and how he's got to help them to find out what happened to the one Green Lantern that did go to that planet. They never heard anything more from him. So, but yeah, you could read this without being a fan of either one, and Aliens or the Green Lantern. It's a good standalone story.
Cool. All right. I am going to move over back into the Archie world with the best of Betty's Diary. Betty, who is my favorite character in the Archie world. This is collecting many different stories throughout. They don't publish. Sometimes they don't put the years in here, but looking at some of the styles, I'm thinking maybe 70s and 80s that we are seeing these stories. But it is all focusing on Betty. Each issue, each little story is her kind of writing in her diary, reading her diary, which is kind of funny because in the Riverdale show right now, they just had that in one of the episodes. I think it was 2 weeks ago, the penultimate episode of season 4, if you will. She was reading her diary, and they flash back to some stuff when she was a child and stuff. So Betty's Diary has always been kind of that staple in the Archie comics for their storytelling and stuff. But it's mostly all the normal Archie stuff that you would expect, and her. They're just focusing on her. There's one where she wakes up with a nightmare that Jughead is in love with her, and she's kind of running from Jughead. And when she wakes up, she realizes it was only a dream. But then when she goes outside, Jughead is actually chasing her throughout the issue, and she's thinking like, oh my god, like my dreams are manifesting, and Jughead really does love me. And it just turns out that Archie was sick, so he wanted Jughead to deliver a message to Betty. So Jughead's trying to talk to her, and he's like, Betty, I have to stop, and she keeps running away because she thinks she's going to get smooched by Jughead. And it's just kind of funny that finally, once he does run into her and just says, like, I have a message from Archie. He says he's sick right now, but he still wants to go out on a date on Saturday. He'll be fine by Saturday. And when she realizes that Jughead really doesn't love her, then she smooches Jughead, and then Jughead runs away, obviously. So it's kind of a fun little story of just how it kind of mirrored the opening story. And that's kind of what a lot of the Archie comics can really accomplish in the 3 to 5 page story format. So yeah, it's always fun to read those kind of stories too, because in the Riverdale show is Jughead and Betty have been a couple for quite some time, as well as the actors in real life being a couple. So it is always funny, like, seeing that romance on TV and social media and what they present and stuff, and then reading in the comics and just seeing how those characters could not be just more opposite, but when they're presented in the Riverdale interpretation, it definitely makes sense. But so yeah, I'm a Barchi fan myself, for all you Riverdale fans out there. So whenever I get to read the comics and see that kind of, where Jughead has nothing to do with that, it's just the classic Betty and Veronica fighting over Archie and stuff like that. So, but yeah, bunch of little mini stories. If you're specifically into any Archie character, they do a lot of these things where you can just get your Jughead stories and your Reggie stories, your Archie, your Betty, your Veronica. So that's just kind of what's cool, is that they all read the same, but the being focused on those characters is kind of a good way to cater to the reader for somebody who really digs a certain character. So, so yeah, This is The Best of Betty's Diary from the Archie and Friends All-Stars. So fun little, thin little book there. Another $10 purchase. So yeah, that concludes my list. And I think Kirby is going to take us home with the rest.
All right, we got first off Predator Invaders from the Fourth Dimension. This was real fun. It's basically a 4D outdoor theater. They come out with this 4-dimensional package that they can offer, and you get the special glasses that let you see the show, how it works and everything like that. And the guy thinks that there's going to be like smell-o-vision and all that stuff included into it, which they kind of get some extra little bonuses from it. But what happens is a predator lands on the planet to do his standard hunting game, and a kid comes across the predator, and his dad is one of the heads of the group that's doing the theater thing, and he gave him his 4D glasses ahead of time, and he notices that with these glasses he can actually see Predator when Predator's in stealth mode. So he's like, the Predator notices this and starts attacking him, throws a few bombs at him, and the kid finds some of Predator's bombs and hides them and takes off, and Predator starts hunting him down and follows him into the movie theater and stuff, and everybody gets to see little pop-ups of the Predator because they all have glasses on and stuff, so they think it's part of the whole show. And the guy that's promoting the show and the guy that's backing the show is like all excited. He's like, well, if this is the way the show is going to be, you're definitely going to get more of these to set up. But yeah, I don't want to ruin the storyline, what happens with the Predator and all that, but it's just a fun ongoing chase throughout the world of the Predator chasing down the kid and then his family getting involved and other people getting involved. But if you like Predator and you want a fun little adventure, this is definitely worth the read. Check it out.
You know what decade that was from?
That was 1990. I would say 97.
Okay. I was just kind of curious about the 4D thing, because now we do have the 4D and a version of the smell-o-vision and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I was just kind of curious.
Okay, now I'm going through a group of comics here, but I read the Species movie adaptation. I hated the movie. I never liked the storyline, the concept. It always drove me nuts that some dumbasses would take dumb idiots would take a concept of sending a thing up into space with basically the human layout, what we are, where we live, how we talk, all this stuff, our music, everything. Let's just send it out there and hope someone finds it and we can get together and have a party someday. But instead, of course, the Species sends back a note to us, and you get nice little references in here, because I like this better than the movie, even though I hated the movie, because you get to see you get to hear what the alien's thinking throughout the chase and all that. You get to hear, like, we didn't really find out that the aliens contacted us and wanted to cross our DNAs together. They let us do it, and of course, instead of doing one, the humans got to make 100 and put them off to the side, because God forbid if anything goes wrong, we want to make sure we have extra backups. But yeah, if you like the movie, you'll love the comics because you get a little bit of extra out of it. But it's just wish the humans wouldn't be that stupid. We are.
I thought you were hanging.
And then sticking with movie adaptations, I went into the Starship Troopers. An excellent movie. You get to get Colonel Jenkins, the mind reader. Neil Patrick Harris is the character in the movie. He gives the perspective of the story about talking about how he sits there and he was thinking about Johnny, and he's got Johnny in his head, and then tells the whole story with Johnny Rico and stuff, and the Roughnecks. And then you get basically everything you get in the movie here. You get the highlights. Yes, Damon, you do get the naked shower scenes and stuff. But good artwork. I don't know if any of you have ever seen any of the Star Wars. There's like 8 animated films and stuff. Or Star Wars, Starship
I've
Troopers.
seen Star Wars.
I've seen some Star Wars stuff, yeah. A few of them.
But the artwork's a lot like the animated ones, but it's great if you like it and you get the extra little quirks in there. And same with that, you get to see things that people are thinking in it you don't get to hear in the movie and stuff. And then I did a 3-comic run of Starship Troopers Insect Touch, which I goofed up and of course read this after. I read the other one, but this is the prequel to the movie. So it's nice because you get the whole storyline where the bugs, the asteroid hits Mars, and then we know about the planet. We find out about the planet Clandathu, and we sit there and send a ship out there, and the ship has Raznik in there, so you get to see the origin of Raznik's Roughnecks next, and you see how he lost his arm and all that stuff. There's a nice storyline with that if you like the movie. And then you got little things, advertisements like Red Rocket there on the back of the covers and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely worth the read if you like the stories. Or if you haven't seen the animated films, you should see the animated films. Every one of them are excellent. I think there's 8 of them. But yeah, there's a quick sci-fi rundown for you.
Cool. That should do it for our weekly comic reviews. We're going to move on over to the letters page. And save. Okay. And just to shake up the routine here, Katie, I think we'll start with you, and then we'll go around the normal rounds.
Maybe Jim will be back by that time. See,
I didn't.
last week he dropped off completely. This time he left the chair and everything there.
Well, yeah. So I guess we'll start, and then if he's not back by then, we'll just eventually get to him. So, all right. And did everybody hear the question then?
I heard it, but I don't know what to say, so I'm feeling a bit deer in the headlights about starting it.
Okay. I can start it then. I just figured we could give other people towards the end usually have to hear everybody's answer. So I was going to give everybody at the end the opportunity to start, but yeah, I can start it off then. No biggie.
Okay.
Okay.
Much appreciated. Thank you.
All right. Record and zoom. Here we go. Welcome to the letters page, and I am going to unpin Jim's video here as I was looking to see where he went. Okay, here I am. Welcome to the letters page. We're going to talk about this week's question, which is, who is the most romantic comic book character? As we all know, May is the month of love, right? I think that's what May is known for, right? So yes, here we go. Who is the most romantic comic book character? I was thinking what kind of answer I was going to present, kind of going down the line of thinking, how deep, if I was going to go with the superhero realm or the Archie comics realm, because there are 2 different types of, romance styles there. But I ended up going with the android, who is the Vision. Now, the Vision, who is somebody who eventually got married to the Scarlet Witch, and then they had their fake magical children and all that stuff, and he got reprogrammed, and they broke up and all that kind of stuff. But concentrating on the most recent Vision with The Vision from Tom King and Gabriel Walta, you see Vision creating his own family. He has a house, he has the wife, kids, they get a dog. You're like, what's more romantic than an android who wants love so much that he just creates a whole thing for himself and this whole different lifestyle. There was a Taco Bell something that just popped up on the screen. What did that say?
You're so my type.
Oh, there we go. For our audio listeners, one of the great Taco Bell sauce packet words of wisdom.
Too bad you're not single. I'll quit.
No, go on.
So Vision, I'm going with him because I think that for someone that wants that, he just creates it for himself. And what's more romantic than creating a robot family with that eventually leads to murder and destruction and death, and so romantic. Damon?
Was that David or Damon you said?
Damon?
He's got to turn his microphone on.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right.
I guess I'm gonna have to go with Beverly Switzler.
Nice.
I think Anthony's the only one who knows who that is, but she is the main love interest of Howard the Duck. She was portrayed by Leah Thompson in the movie, and any woman that can look past the species barrier and still love a person for all they are has to be one of the most romantic people out there. I mean, after all, how many women could fall in love with a duck?
Show of hands.
Exactly. So I
Women.
yeah. So I that's the first thing that popped in my head, and I'll go with that.
Great answer. David.
Well, along that line, there are a number of people who have fallen in love with swamp creatures and various other things as well. Now, I've never read romance comics, but romance comics are a thing. They actually were quite popular many years ago. So perhaps one of the most romantic comic book characters could be found in one of those romance comics. But I don't know. I probably never will know because not really my thing. To be honest with you, I really don't know how to answer this one. Nothing really comes to mind. I could joke around and say, the most romantic comic book character, has got to be the Joker. I mean, look at what he goes to, the lengths that he goes to for his one true love, Batman. So he's always going just so far above and beyond what most people would go through for someone that they love. So I don't know. I don't have the answer, but maybe that's it.
I figured Superman took Lois above and beyond into space.
And brought her back too, so that's got to count for something.
Yeah.
All right, Kirby.
I went with a guy that's just poor little guy. He's just misrepresented and abused. That's the Toxic Avenger. And it's like he falls in love with a girl, and he's abused and goes through everything and still keeps the girl, even after hearing her sing for the first time, and still loves her singing to this day. And it's like, if you love someone that much, if you've heard her sing, that's true love. I know.
Now, for our video viewers and listeners, when you held that up, there was a slight glare. Can you just take that out of the package by ripping it apart and letting?
I would like to right here, and it is in the box of opening. It is going to get opened, whether we do a little show or not. It's part of the opening package, so I have no problem doing that, but I'd like to save it for our opening show.
I just wanted
to get rid of the glare a little bit there. There you go.
I just wanted all the Kurts in the world to get uneasy with that request.
Yeah. Yes, Kurt, heads up. It is getting ripped open.
We'll do an episode dedicated just to Kurt. In fact, we have so many packaged things around the store that, if I can't sell them, I'll just go around and open them all.
Yep.
That should be the video series, is Kurt's unboxing series, in which he never appears in, probably.
Roll up comic books and.
Yep. All right, let's move over to Katie.
All right, so I opened up my CLZ app to see what books I had read, which is very helpful to think about who the most romantic character could be. And I'm going a little weird. There's a comic from Boom Studios called Coda, and the main character in Coda is called Hum, and everything Hum does throughout the series is to try and find his wife and keep her memory alive, and then he actually does find her, and then everything he does to keep their relationship together. All the things he fights, all the creatures, all the political machinations, throughout all of it, he's like, I don't care. Like, the only thing I am fighting for is for my wife. And then how they ended up making a life together after that. And I thought that was really romantic. In the midst of a post-apocalyptic world where there's been horrible wars and all kinds of violence and the whole world flipped upside down, his main focus is just for his wife. He used to be a bard, and now there's nothing to be a bard about anymore. And what keeps him going is his wife. None of the stuff he does is for glory or, for power or anything. It's just truly to find his wife. And for a guy who doesn't say much throughout the series verbally, he keeps a journal day to day where he's writing to his wife, like, not to her like he's going to send it, but as if he was speaking to her and telling her about the events of his day and how he thought about things, how all he wanted was to get back to her. And I think that's very romantic. Kind of a secondary answer I had, and it got me to stop and think for a second about the line of love versus obsession, and that's Thanos. Now, I don't think what Thanos does is romantic or okay, and I don't think as a reader that what Thanos is doing is for love, but Thanos tries to convince himself that all the awful things that he does is for the love of Lady Death. Now, in Thanos' mind, maybe that's romantic. I'm not sure it is, but what do you guys think?
Well, it's funny you said that, because that reminded me that Jacob, who inspired the Jacob's Birthday Battles, he sent me his answer privately and said his answer was Thanos. Who else in the universe would kill so many for one quote-unquote person? So...
Well, he comes from a different world. It's a different culture. I try not to really judge too harshly on the beliefs of other cultures. So, maybe it's okay, in that world, in that culture, for him to go to such great lengths for love.
Who's this person he's in love with? I just see him wipe out civilizations and steal their children. That's what I see from Thanos.
He's in love with
So
death.
You're absolutely right. He is in love with Lady Death. So he personas death as a being versus a concept or a thing.
But it's Lady Death from Chaos Comics, or
no, wrongly.
I don't know. Oh, but maybe he is in love with her too.
Yeah, that's why I was confused when I heard Lady
Marvel
Death.
version.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that makes sense. I
Yeah,
didn't know there was I was thinking, is there a crossover I missed?
Yeah, the whole comics Thanos is him doing that. Lady Death basically is trolling him in a way, and is making him do all of her dirty work. And every time he does something awful, he thinks that he's going to win her heart, and then she, just, stands him up and makes him do something else, and it's just over and over and over again. And so that's what.
I would say, to me, if that was real, like if those were a real relationship, I would say that it would definitely be an abusive relationship, where I'm not sure that either one truly loves one another. To me, I think Thanos is obsessed with the idea of death and uses it to justify him doing awful things, even though everyone around him says, no, stop. And if Lady Death were a real person, and there's a couple comics that explore that idea, I think she would know exactly what she's doing, and she has no intention of ever reciprocating Thanos' interest, and is doing it on purpose. So I don't think that's at all romantic. Maybe the characters themselves would say it's romantic, but either way, I want to put in there that I think it's definitely abusive and not healthy. Don't kill people.
I think that's a very great message that could be a tagline of the Crimson Cowl Comic Club podcast. Don't kill people.
Right.
It's a brave stance, a very bold stance, but we stand by it.
I could get a bumper sticker. I kill.
Thank you. I appreciate your support.
Okay, Jim, do you have an answer?
Well, I kind of went a little bit different in thinking that there was a lot of things that were romantic. I was thinking Leslie from Unnatural, Faith from Faithless, and then I went with not necessarily the most romantic character overall, although she is up there, but more of one moment that I thought was especially romantic, and that's Catwoman. And Catwoman, especially when she was getting ready to marry Bruce Wayne and getting everything ready for that big day. And even though she's marrying the richest man in the world and never has to worry about anything ever again, she goes out and steals her wedding dress just because that's her nature and that's what brought them together, by her being a thief. So I think she probably ended up leaving her credit card number in the end anyway, but she still broke in and stole her wedding dress just for some sentimentality.
And that wedding dress was drawn by Joelle Jones, and I too.
And it's gorgeous.
Yeah.
I love that dress. Oh my goodness.
I was hoping I was going to
Detail
have
in that drawings.
Well, while you're looking that up, Anthony, I'll just throw in voiceless Shelley's opinion again that she would like to say Dracula, because
he's not really comic.
That's
he's comic.
good
book.
answer.
He's in a ton of comics.
And
I think that's a good one.
I was thinking either Jim or Dr. Kurtzdale, we might have heard Mr. Freeze, because that's his whole obsession. It's just
Ooh. Yes, good one.
For our video,
There you go.
I happen to have the Batwoman. Oh boy, that's their couple name, Batwoman. The the wedding album deluxe edition by my side, and here is that dress designed by Joelle Jones. They have that as a statue, and I want it. I might steal it while wearing the Tammy's dress.
There you go.
All right. Well, I think that will complete it. It's a little shorter episode for the podcast and the video audience here, but definitely a good information-filled one.
Young David will be happy.
Coming up in the weeks of May here, new comics are slowly coming out with DC Comics. Eventually, once we get to like May 20th, May 27th, we do have some information on some Marvel releases that are slowly going to start coming out. So within the next month, we will have a couple newer books that we may be bringing to the table here, but still encourage everybody to go back into the stacks of piles that they haven't read, things that they've wanted to read for so long. Basically, if it's a comic book and you read it, you can talk about it here. So we encourage that always, but we slowly will get back to a new comic book day in the month of May. We're almost there, folks. So to wrap this show up, this entire time, I've been a little too Raph.
David.
I forgot to come up with the name and unmute my computer, so just skip me.
I've been a hideous formed creature of superhuman size and strength.
I'm crying about fictional characters again.
And I'm the most romantic character in comics.
To be continued.